I never anticipated standing at my bedroom door with uncertainty, not because my keys were missing, not memory loss. I was frozen by terror of what or who was beyond that boundary. That night, I was paralyzed. With unsaid sentiments, my hand lingered on the handle. My heart races so hard that it echoes along the corridor. The silence around me, the air was thick. A stillness that amplifies your thoughts and makes them overpowering and powerful. I had no idea a major change was coming that would change my life. Without warning, I had no time to prepare. Just a second, a brief surprise. Jason's actions sparked something in me. Jason, my dear stepson, listen, before your ideas spin out of control, you must understand this. This story is intricate and hard to explain. The weight is heavy, very discouraging, certainly not easy. A story that evokes strong emotions creates unease. The sort that wakes you up at 3 a.m. and leaves you wondering how you got here, because I refuse to be the villain. This was never my goal. I never chose this. Just a lady. I had lost touch with being seen as a lady who had lived alone for eternity. Jason spotted me. I hurry ahead. Follow me to another time. No specific moment yet, but to the circumstances that lead me here. To that limit, uncertainty remains. Decision made. Have you entered a house that appears perfect? Clean driveway, lush lawn, and vivid flowers on the porch. Under the surface, it feels like a group of people putting on a show. My heart was there. A husband obsessed with work who addressed me as a coworker who had never contacted me. I connected with it deeply. Nearly 2 years passed. I recorded his weekly glances at me. I eventually lost everything. Jason arrived. I am courteous and respectful at 19, yet I find comfort in solitude. He moved in after issues with his mother. Not being a prying person, I kept back my questions. However, his eyes occasionally wavered. It seemed like he was carrying an invisible weight. Isn't it fascinating how troubled people identify each other? But I kept my distance. I thought it was essential. I was his stepmother. I fed people, purified. He was asked about courses. I followed my route until that fateful evening, that crucial time when I saw a moment not meant for me. It stole my breath away. When I met Jason in a vulnerable time, what may have exacerbated it, what deepened the wound, was that related to me? I want to say I left and forgot. My goal is to say I faced him. I want to share numerous thoughts and feelings. However, reality is more intricate than it appears. If you've felt alone, surrounded by others, but feeling absolutely alone, have you ever seen your mirror and felt like a stranger? Have you ever craved a short moment of closeness so much that you were afraid? You may eventually understand what happened. Before continuing, if you've ever had a daily burden on your heart, if you've ever wanted to express your deepest sentiments yet feared condemnation, click like to show your support. Shocking Infidelity Saga presents true experiences that question your assumptions about love, trust, and human relationships. Join our loving community by subscribing. Understanding and kindness are welcome here. Let me transfer you to that fateful evening. The corridor. To quietness. I paused at the entrance. It occurred anyhow. I thought becoming a stepmom would be comforting and welcoming. A gentle hug provides comfort and support. Supporting personal growth, helping out, giving the needy refuge. However, it seemed like another chore. Get necessities, handle laundry, contact Jason, try to smile over supper despite the stillness. 38 years old. Our marriage is 7 years old. I once considered myself lucky. My spouse, Mark, has accomplished much. Support is provided. I always ensured we had a decent home, reliable cars, enough insurance, and a retirement plan. But he abandoned me long ago. I doubt it was about me. He may have gotten lost. I no longer feel loved in your arms. How can he talk to me without checking his phone? How can we sit together to make it more meaningful than two coworkers in the break room? His absences are regular: work, travel, gatherings, visits that become stays. He occasionally sends a message to check in. He sometimes falters. However, the house's deep quiet hurt me most. From separation, not peace. The hush grew heavier with Jason's arrival. Jason is 19 years old, former spouse Mark's kid. He wasn't supposed to be in our life this way. In a turbulent relationship with his mother, he lived his own life at a distinct pace. However, they had an unstated incident that everyone avoided. He was moving boxes and putting things in the guest room down the hall before I noticed. Conflicting feelings first overpowered me. He doesn't belong to me. My sense of obligation persisted. Prepped more meals, messages on the fridge, asking about his classes and getting a shrug or hardly audible is okay. Keeping cool, he showed warmth and care. However, he was really sad. He seemed to carry a weight too heavy for a young man. I occasionally saw his glance on me, not inappropriately, but unusually. He seemed to see through my veneer. Perhaps that caused my greatest dread. Mark seemed to have forgotten me. I was more than my outward appearance and practiced expressions, not the lady who cried in the bathtub to release unspoken feelings. Jason didn't say anything. Unlike Mark, his quiet was weighty. I wasn't excluded. I was drawn in. The mansion itself appeared to intensify the chaos. Unwelcoming, vast, immaculate. Everything is in order. It's not a simple error. It reveals larger difficulties. Such an environment would likely feel safe and comforting. However, it resembled a museum. We seemed to be performing, afraid to say anything meaningful. We had 3 chairs at the dinner table, yet the air was eerily quiet. Mark was immersed in a swirl of thoughts as he read through his emails, each mouthful of food a distraction from his mental agony. Jason gazed at his plate, losing himself in thoughts and sensations. What about me? I would grin. It would be light chat. I asked about each person's day. While thinking, I would discreetly gather the dishes. Always so. I sometimes lingered at the kitchen sink, plates clean, gripping the sponge and staring out the window, lost in contemplation. Lost in a swirl of ideas, nothing grabs me. I let the stillness envelope me. I can't pinpoint when everything changed, when Jason became a reflection of my feelings rather than a distraction. It may have been his thankfulness after supper, even while others were mute. How he noticed even the smallest changes, as if I changed my jewelry or parted my hair differently. Perhaps he noticed me. Man stare at ladies should be more meaningful, not now. However, how someone looks at another, actually seeing their cracks. There was no true love, not yearning, deep comprehension occurred. That kind of circumstance, such concentration, it appears unexpectedly. Reflecting on the ignored moves me. How to relive that. One fateful night, I came home early. It happened suddenly. Another meeting failed, and Mark was nowhere to be found, leaving me feeling abandoned. I remember getting home to find the driveway black, but for Jason's window's soothing orange glow. This home seemed suspended in time, waiting for anything to happen. I quietly opened the front door without making a sound to respect the serenity within. Perhaps I was reluctant to announce my return. I'm lost. Floors creaked under my feet. The unpleasant sound amid the quiet reminds us that certain places should be left alone. No one disturbed the living room. All dishes are gone from the sink. Television is quiet. That peaceful calm has an unsaid weight, as if the air knows your problems. As I climbed stairs, my mind raced with ideas that Jason was either asleep or engaged in his schoolwork. I felt uneasy when a sound broke the calm as I reached the landing. Not melodic, silence says volumes. Different, gentle, melodic, whispered. My heart hurt. I reassured myself to respect his limits. Just move on, I told myself. There was a force that stopped me. He had a slightly open door, just a little, just enough to provide a touch of that soothing glow into the passageway. I learned more than I wanted to know, breaking the stillness I was supposed to respect. Enough for me to comprehend. I planned not to invade. I had no ambitions or expectations. Before my intellect could grasp, my eyes spotted it. His back was pleasantly curled, fingers straying under the duvet on his bed. His laptop screen projected a chilly light on his face, emphasizing loneliness and reflection. I felt like my lungs were robbed in that moment. Not his actions. His concentration was on the situation. It was I myself. It took time to settle in since it was from another period, a video I forgot, now bringing back feelings. Years ago, Mark and I, one of those personal moments from a brief night of intimacy when there was still a spark. I forget where we stored it. I thought it faded. It was before me. Jason watched it happen. Watching my every step, I stayed mute, stayed put. Stuck in silence, I felt compelled to barge in, grab the laptop, and exclaim my emotions. Another thing I wanted to change stayed the same. I retreated, my breath catching and my hands shaking violently. The corridor seemed like it was closing in on me with unsaid tension. I entered my room and quietly closed the door, seeking refuge from the surrounding chaos. A surge of emotions hit me. I stayed put and thinking, my mouth is thirsty, increasing pulse, my feelings were strong, disappointed beyond measure, broken, emotional chaos. There's more to consider, I hesitated to label. Jason watching my every move bothered me more than that. The emotional impact was the worst. Unfazed, not disgusted, however, understood. I deeply regretted that. Trembling, I sat on my bed, trying to manage my emotions. That video's purpose? How could he find it? Did he know I saw him? Was he hoping I noticed? I tried to dismiss it as a mistake. He found it suddenly. It was meaningless. I knew the reality below. His look has changed, staring me deeply, gentle, intrigued. I felt called to be more than his stepmother. I wore a robe and lay on the bed without covers that night. Intense gaze, staring at the ceiling, contemplating, reliving the nightmare more than meets the eye. The feelings I felt, because a major change happened. Despite my attempts to dismiss it as a passing moment, I knew it was the start of something new. The next morning, I pretended everything was okay. I grinned, experiencing mixed feelings. Steamed coffee filled the cup. I offered Jason toast. He agreed, as usual, respectful, serene, like nothing was wrong, yet everything felt wrong. Never again. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, watching my cup steam swirl, my stomach churning with each painful instant. He fixed my eyes. However, he did not pursue them. I ate in quiet, buried in contemplation as usual. That may have exacerbated the problem. The unknowing, did he know I saw it? Did he feel shame? Was he hoping I noticed? Was it just a mistake, a tragic twist of fate? I focused on forgetting it all day. I cleaned up absolutely fine spots. Carefully organized bookshelves. The pantry was well organized. When I closed my eyes, the vision tormented me. That photo elicits strong emotions, that poignant moment. Him watching my every step. I assured myself it was a passing interest. He may have found the video accidentally. Perhaps he linked unknowingly. I gained a better knowledge over time. Not at all. It was planned. It was planned. My deep feelings frightened me more than that realization. Despite the confusion, uncertainty, and shame, a strange exhilaration persisted. I hated it. I deeply regretted it. But it existed. This odd flutter in my chest seems like a long buried feeling return. I saw previously overlooked details. Jason's intense gaze as I looked for something in the low cupboard was overpowering. He discreetly watched me clean up after supper, creating tension. His eyes moved with determination, not rudeness or violence. He seemed to be seeing me in a way I hadn't for so long. After seeing it, it became part of me. It felt like a lifetime since someone stared at me so intently. Once, Mark did. Early in our union, the early days, he would sneak up behind me while I cooked supper, hugging me and kissing my neck. That portion of him disappeared between years 3 and 4. If he touched me, it was brief, soft reassurance, gently touching the arm, cold and disconnected, empty. Touch that acknowledges limits, yet seeks complex connection. But Jason's stares were deeply felt. After realizing that, I became extremely aware of him. When he entered the room, I felt his presence before I looked away. His footsteps were heavy with unsaid tension as he approached me, gentler. He spoke softly, like if to reveal a secret to me, not just nearby. What about me? I changed too. It looked inconsequential at first. My innocence, I assured myself. I let my robe drape more in the morning, prepared breakfast in tank tops instead of large t-shirts. Not for him, it was never about him. That kept repeating in my head. I knew deep down that this was not true. I dress differently, be patient, given more thought. Choose fabrics that fit the body well. I paused by the door as he approached, feeling heavier than usual, freed hair, skin still warm after shower. My remorse and disappointment were great. Still, I persisted. I kept my look when we met, those two lingering glances across the kitchen or down the hall. Should have. However, I did not. Instead, I craved it, wanting that connection, that fervor. The warmth I had lost for years resurfaced, bringing back memories. Not about him. It wasn't initially. I focused on my experiences, about feeling vital again. It seemed like someone understood me. However, my remorse flooded me every night as I fell asleep. This was alarming. The feeling is disturbing. My husband's son. If we never had a profound relationship, though we lived together for only a few months, our feelings were strong. That was irrelevant. However, the line between right and wrong is blurring, deeply moving, transforming. Clarity is becoming harder to discover. With each passing day, I felt closer to that key moment. Glances tell tales. The start was modest. Peer moments can disclose greater realities from afar. In their eyes, innocence was a sham. I carried heavy bags home from the supermarket and my arms hurt from the day. I was surprised when the door opened as I struggled with the keys before I could knock. Jason, our decisions weigh on my heart. First, he was silent. He pulled the larger luggage from my arms, brushing against mine in an unconscious moment of tension. Though brief, it touched me greatly, like a flash or question, a question we both dreaded to ask amid the stillness. He took them into the kitchen and laid them gingerly as if they would break. His stare cut through the turmoil and he whispered, "You don't have to carry this load alone." 6 significant words. That was all. However, they stayed with me because Mark stopped speaking that way. Mark trusted I would handle everything. In the midst of grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, and scheduling, smiling is powerful. Jason, 19, saw stuff my 7-year-old partner missed. After that, our talks changed drastically. Entanglement increased. It started with lighthearted kitchen talks about music, school, and literature. But then he asked real questions. Share some of my identity, thinking about my adventure, reflecting on my identity before marrying his father. When I talked, he heard me. Not with the faraway, half-hearted glance Mark gave me from his laptop. Jason was completely present as he absorbed every word, came closer. See my soul? Reacted to my emotions sincerely, and I anticipated it with hope and fear. For him, Mark left home again one terrible night. As I sat in the darkly lit living room with a glass of wine, the beautiful melodies of an old movie evoked profound meditation. Jason came in, hesitated, and sat at the end of the couch. Our quiet was lengthy, silently contemplated. Suddenly, the mood changed. They kissed passionately on screen, gradually, heavy-hearted. My body tensed up, looked away from him. I declined. No doubt the air changed. I grabbed the controller after a second. He came simultaneously. Our fingertips touched. We contemplated, just long enough to matter. He removed his hand, leaving a heavy quiet. He apologized softly. I shook my head but didn't say anything, letting the tension hanging. I couldn't. It wasn't meant to be. So it was really. After then, touches became common, additional. Think carefully. A brief contact as he offered me salt. His arm touched mine as we waited in the corridor. Tension, obvious. A delicate touch on my lower back as he moved aside to let me in the doorway. Minor moments, easily justified. I chose silence because part of me wanted them to continue. I found him attractive, wanting his presence to fill the stillness in the kitchen. He haunts my thoughts when I go across the garden at dusk, leaving my bedroom door open, hint. Then the music started. The first one was in a book I dropped on a couch. 5 chaotically written words. You have so much hidden depth. I stared at it for what seemed like an age, contemplating it. A few days later, the second one emerged behind the kitchen counter sugar bowl. Your worth goes beyond appearance. It requires emotional connection. My adventure would start with you if I could turn back time. I felt tension with every note. Not guilty, but deeply sad. Desiring what's out of reach. A bad desire. I kept them in a drawer with worn scarves and forgotten birthday cards. At night, when the world was quiet, I read them like sincere notes from a life I'd never lived. I accidentally knocked over Jason's notebook while cleaning the living room one afternoon. I never meant to find it. I carefully lifted it to put it back on the shelf, but the page stayed open. I was at a crossroads, a lovely pencil drawing, gentle, thorough. Lost in meditation, I delicately brushed my hair off the edge of my refuge. That moment flashed back just a week ago. He was watching me without my knowledge. My hand trembled as I examined the sketch. He captured a really intimate, uncensored moment. It was like seeing a reflection of a past self. Not the tired spouse, not the invisible one, but there was longing. Did I observe that, or was it my imagination? Was he calling for more? I vowed to stay away. The scenario was dangerous. This was alarming. I danced on the brink of calamity in a delicate area, subject to my decisions. Still, I persisted. The door remained open. I kept the notes. I kept the drawing. All along, I persisted. Each brief moment matters. Subsurface, too. I sensed its direction. The night's stormy sky reflected the chaos inside. Thunder rumbled in the distance, resonating through you. The rain pelted the windows like it wanted to burst in and invade the sanctuary. Again, Mark was away, this time a conference, perhaps in a warm, bright location that was never asked. House vibe had changed. Silent but intense, it seemed like it was frozen in unsaid tension. At around 9, the lights went out. Everything was darkened instantly. Silence replaces the refrigerator's hum. The hallway nightlight is cold, casting shadows in the solitude. Rain on the roof and silence around me. I carefully lighted a few candles around the living area to create a cozy mood. An eerie glow from the weak light made the shadows move unsettlingly. My inner anguish overpowered the distant storm. Jason descended the stairs, heart heavy with unsaid sentiments, lost in contemplation with loose sweatpants and damp hair from the shower. Our eyes met, the flickering flame creating shadows, and he hesitated. A barely slight smile followed. "Are you okay?" he asked. Nodding, I tried to keep the home from becoming a black hole. The flickering lighting formed shadows about us as we sat on the floor facing the coffee table. It was a touching conversation. It began as a humorous comment on how the storm reminded him of boyhood, when he would huddle up under blankets and imagine giants bowling in the sky. Listening to his voice and connecting to something real made me laugh, not because I was laughing. Silence stretched over them, not unpleasant, but full of unspoken feelings. His intense look overpowered me, and I couldn't take it anymore. "What was it about that video that captivated you?" He blinked, swallowing hard and straining his throat. "It was the one time I saw you actually loved, so I could tell by his stare before he talked. Those remarks broke a barrier I had held for too long. I stayed mute. I failed. He fascinated me, and the flickering lighting formed shadows that encircled us, creating a tight and intimate environment. He tentatively extended his hand, fearing my retreat. His fingertips touched mine. I stayed put. His gentle fingertips on mine made everything else seem to drift away. Terror, remorse, lengthy silences. We were alone with unspoken words and unsolved sentiments. The pain in my eyes was intense. I felt the sadness before it exploded. Soft tears dropped from my eye. He softly swept it aside with his thumb, a gentle gesture in the chaos. An oppressive quiet followed. The air is thick with silence. Wait a moment. Then he kissed me gently, cautiously, as if seeking my approval. And I offered readily. Our lips meeting broke everything and caused mayhem. Don't remember standing. The living room to couch transition is blurred in my memory. I just remember the intensity, contact, and breath whispers. I felt fragile and important in his hug. Releasing all I thought characterized my strength. The way our bodies communicated seems lost to time. Suddenly, terror was gone. Without question, drop it. For him, to me, to the woman I was and never could be, we were intertwined in the calm, the flickering light throwing gentle shadows. As I stared at the ceiling, my body vibrated and my heart was exposed. Deep inside, I sensed it. I recognized then that nothing would be the same. There was no going back. Nobody can reverse it. What happened is undisputed. The situation cannot be fixed by justification. We passed a clear line and it split. I was adrift and unsure of myself. My chest felt heavy the next morning, reluctant to meet his eyes. I wore my robe and down the stairs before morning, leaving my past. The candle flickered one more time before going out on the table. Couch cushions carried silent moments. The blanket we loved is now on the floor, a quiet reminder of what was, as if the air were full with unsaid tensions. Everything felt overpowering. I made coffee with quivering hands, unsaid strain. I couldn't drink it, searching for a diversion. As he approached the steps, a cold shot through me, paralyzing me. I looked aside as he stood at the doorway, his eyes kind and lips slightly parted as if words were about to escape. His optimistic look overwhelmed me because hope meant he believed something substantial might come from this predicament. I couldn't let him think that. He was lost in thought and emotion at that moment. Anticipating, I pretended to clean a clean counter and looked away from him. Sure, he spoke gently. Are we capable? I said today is full with tasks. Voice felt weird, intense. Cut short, he paused, looked away from him. I failed. Okay, he said after a moment, silent. Wounded, he turned and left. I sank on a stool, heart beating and stomach knotted. I did what? Every part of me hurt. In a profound, heartbreaking way, I felt like I had a deep fissure inside me and was trying to close it with shaking fingers. Throughout the day, I avoided him. If I sensed him above, I stayed below. I held my breath as I entered the kitchen till life stopped. I thought I was protecting him, but I was hiding my concerns. His moment was full with unsaid sentiments from inside. Thinking about our deeds, Mark arrived home with the day's weight as the sun sank. His bag dropped with a bang, and his extraordinarily loud, almost startling voice boomed through the home. Shivers ran down my spine. He kissed my cheek tenderly. I retreated. He realized. His smile shifted somewhat. Still, he stayed mute. He asked what I made for supper. Bearing plates. I tried to hide my distress and pretend nothing had changed. However, things ended differently. The world felt empty. Last, Jason dropped more slowly than ever. My glance was ignored. Lost in unsaid sentiments, he sat across the table with his plate untouched. I stared at my plate, avoiding eye contact. Mark recounted his journey. I asked Jason about school. Attempts at comedy failed. Our stillness was thick. Jason left an aura of unsaid tension after supper by retiring to the upstairs. To me, Mark's intense eyes conveyed volumes. Is everything okay? I said that. The pace is too fast, totally exhausted. He stopped pushing. He never comprehended. I felt it strongly. Unsettling anxiety permeated the air. It's not enough to blame me, just enough to stir emotions. I recoiled again when Mark reached for me in bed that night. I reported feeling sick. He turned away silently, carrying unsaid sentiments, falling asleep. I felt the storm growing inside me as I lay in the darkness staring at the ceiling. The ensuing days were chaotic. Jason seldom spoke to me. His warm eyes were suddenly filled with confusion and treachery. He mercilessly took my heart after I gave it to him. I let him think there was a way in, then shut it off. Deep calm enveloped him. He was nearby. He was just paying. It broke my heart. I tried to erase it, yet every place echoed our activities. The couch, corridor, ascending stairs. I stared at the mirror in the restroom, seeing a foreign reflection. I wandered through life, feeling like an echo of myself. The guilt was crushing, but the need was equally strong. The hurt of a true relationship despite imperfections. I felt alone and unable to talk about my problems. Definitely not my buddies. He's not my hubby. I barely recognized myself, so I carried remorse, unnoticed by others, but ever present. And Jason, he became more reclusive, withdrawn. He seemed to be avoiding my decisions' chaos. Perhaps he finally saw me for who I am. A lady lost in her own despair, seeking a spark of warmth, even if it burned her soul. My chest felt heavy the next morning, reluctant to meet his eyes. I descended the stairs in my robe before morning, leaving my past. A sensation of loss lingered when the candle burned out on the table. Couch cushions carried silent moments. The blanket we loved is now on the floor, a quiet witness to the tumult. Everything seemed overpowering, like the walls were screaming in pain. I made coffee with quivering hands, unsaid strain. I couldn't drink it. I just wanted to fill the void. I became gripped by tension when I heard his footsteps on the stairs. I couldn't look at him as he stood in the doorway, his gaze kind and his lips slightly parted as if words were about to escape. His eagerness overwhelmed me. He held out hope that something may come from this scenario. I couldn't let him keep that delusion. He was lost in thought and emotion at that moment. Anticipating, I pretended to clean a clean counter and looked away from him. Sure, he spoke gently. Are we capable? I interrupted since I'm busy today. It felt odd to speak. Restrained. Cut short. He hesitated, thinking about unsaid sentiments. Looked away from him. I couldn't, okay? He said after a moment. Silence. Wounded, he turned and left. I sank on a stool, heart beating and stomach knotted. I did what? Every part of me hurt. In a profound, heartbreaking way, I sensed a deep fracture within me and urgently tried to close it with shaking fingers. Throughout the day, I avoided him. If I sensed him above, I stayed below. I held my breath as I entered the kitchen till life stopped. I believed I was protecting him. I secretly hid my genuine self. It seemed like a huge weight, a rising storm to him. From inside, thinking about our deeds, Mark went home with the day's burden as the sun set. Unspoken thoughts weighed on his luggage as it plummeted. He spoke throughout the home, infusing the air with yearning. Too common, extremely hopeful. Shivers ran down my spine. He kissed my cheek tenderly. I retreated, he realized. His smile dropped somewhat, and I noticed. Still, he stayed mute. He asked what I made for supper. I carried plates while pretending nothing had changed, struggling to survive. However, it was the contrary. The world felt empty. Jason fell last, his motions laden with wordless weight. He looked away from me. With a heavy stillness, he sat across the table, his dish untouched. I concentrated on my plate throughout. Mark tried to relate his vacation experiences, but the conversation turned tense. I asked Jason about school. Attempts at comedy failed. Our stillness was thick. Jason disappeared upstairs after supper, leaving an air of unresolved tension. Mark's intense gaze penetrated me. Is everything okay? I said it was rushed, totally exhausted. He refrained. He never did. I felt it strongly. A sense of discomfort pervaded him. It's not enough to blame me, just enough to stir emotions. I recoiled again when Mark reached for me in bed that night. I reported feeling sick. He turned away silently, carrying unsaid sentiments. Falling asleep, as I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, I felt my unrest blazing like a storm. Trouble intensified in the following days. Jason seldom spoke to me. Once warm, his eyes now held bewilderment and treachery. He mercilessly took my heart after I gave it to him. I let him think there was an opening, then instantly closed it. Deep calm enveloped him. He was nearby. He was badly hurt. It broke my heart. I tried to erase it. Each area carried unsaid realities from our acts. The couch, corridor, unspoken tension, on the steps up. In the silent bathroom, I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, her identity buried in my own anguish. I wandered through life, feeling like an echo of myself. The guilt was crushing, but the need was equally strong. The hurt of a true relationship despite imperfections. I felt alone and unable to talk about my problems. Definitely not my buddies. He's not my hubby. I feel so alienated from myself. I carried the weight of guilt, a fragrance unseen by others, but constantly present. And Jason, his withdrawal increased. He seemed to be avoiding my decisions' chaos. Maybe he finally saw me for who I am. She's locked in her sadness. desire for connection, even if it burned. I've kept this private, not even my confidant. For years, it has pushed at my ribcage like a secret truth trying to escape. But tonight, I had to let it happen. Not for forgiveness, not for salvation, simply seeking comprehension. Sometimes loneliness is worse than wrongdoing. Tired of carrying this weight alone. Am I wrong about what happened, or was I just a soul seeking recognition? Feeling connected to feel again after so long numb. My status is unclear. This is known to me. Before that hallway moment, expressing intentions is easy. Standing there with your fingertips on the doorknob, emotions pour over you, and your heart breaking over something you never thought you could handle. Comment. Have you ever crossed a border you couldn't cross back? Who have I become? Have you looked in the mirror? If you were me, how would you have handled this? And if this story touched you, if you reflected, felt deeply, and recalled a part of yourself you believe was lost forever, open out on your feelings. Support this video, share it with someone who may be silently struggling. Join us on Shocking Infidelity Saga as we reveal the hidden facts many are reluctant to say. In truth, we all have scary stories we dread to discuss. Perhaps sharing begins the healing process. Hold on to this, if nothing else, from what I said tonight. Isolation may evoke deep yearning. If you ignore it for too long, it will devour everything in reach, even though it should never be. Even if it wasn't meant to be disturbed, even if it destroys you, enter the light proactively. Express yourself, experience, increase your grip. Before your essence is consumed by quiet